Hey, I'm Roberto, uncle, dreamer, and Disney kid at heart. As a business profit strategist and community leader, I've had the chance to work with multiple business owners and community leaders ranging from napkin ideas to 8-figure brands. And along the way, there's been some failures, amazing successes, and lots of friendships have been born. Now, community leaders come from all walks of life and business. They might identify as a coach, consultant, speaker, a nonprofit leader, or a maker, but here's the thing. They all have one thing in common. They are purpose-driven brands and leaders seeking to create an even bigger impact in the world with and for their communities. This is the show that brings together community leaders and business leaders with communities to reveal their mistakes and successes to building and creating a highly impactful and profitable community. This is the Connected Community Leader Podcast. All right, y'all. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Connected Community Leader Podcast. And I am joined today with someone that I like to call an instigator. Yes, she is the chief disruptor, the chief instigator, and I'm so glad to have her here today. We have today Miss Jay Stone. Now, Jay is an award-winning master brand strategist, best-selling author, sassy speaker, and social media superhero with over 60,000 online followers. And as one of the most respected voices of influence online, Jay's thought-provoking content has been featured on Forbes, BET, Huffington Post, ESPN, Black Enterprise, Essence Magazine, and y'all, the list goes on and on and on. Now, she is affectionately known as the brand mother, and Jay prides herself on being a no-fluff, no-bull, business badass who offers cutting-edge strategies to help entrepreneurs scale their business, their brand, y'all, and here's the thing, y'all, bank account. So welcome, Jay. So glad to have you here with us today.
Hey, wait a minute. Let's back up and talk about this instigator. You trying to say I'm a poop stirrer? Is that what you're calling me on the low low?
So here's the thing, y'all. Sometimes, Jay, you need somebody that can help call you on your poop and stir it so you can get to the goodness that's hidden behind it.
That's a recipe I do not want. The goodness behind the poop recipe. But okay, I'll take it. Maybe it's a little true.
You like me, we like to stir the pot.
Correct.
Who knows what's in the pot, but we like to stir it either way.
Lesson number 1, own your poop.
Own your poop. So, y'all, Jay has been at this entrepreneurship thing for quite a while. And so I'm wondering, tell us about how you got started into entrepreneurship and what's one thing that you wish you had known when you first started?
Well, let me just say that I wish I had taken the entrepreneurial leap. I was actually pushed. However, I had a little parachute. So back in 2000, my father became a quadriplegic. He was paralyzed from the shoulders down, and he required care 18 hours a day. And so that means around the care clock. And we kind of promised him that we would never put him in a nursing home. So my sisters, my mom, and I, we committed to keeping him home. So probably a few months after that incident, September 11th happened, and I got laid off from Delta Airlines. You know how the hospitality industry was really hit hard. And I felt like it was an opportunity for me to stay home and help my family kind of get, stable, find a new normal. And they really needed my help. And so luckily for me, Delta offered me a contract to finish up some work that I was doing. And that's the parachute I mentioned earlier. But then I started to get clients, like friends of friends was like, I need graphics. I need a website. I need those kind of things. At that time, I was making my living doing graphics. And so as a graphic designer / web developer, I had to spend my time doing those things. And one thing led to another. 19 years later, I'm still here. I don't design the graphics anymore personally. I have a team that does that, and it's become an entire agency. However, that first push was September 11th, and the catalyst for not running out and getting another job was really just trying to help my family stabilize, but that was supposed to be temporary. Just the momentum of getting clients is kind of what pushed me to kind of continue. But it was absolutely not an aspiration initially.
So we're going to start calling you the accidental entrepreneur.
It's the accidental entrepreneur, the accidental inspiration. I wasn't trying to do anything. It just happened.
I love that. Some of the best things in life I found happen when you don't plan them. You just, you've got a goal, like you said, take care of your family.
Mm,
And out of it, beautiful things can happen when you choose to give first. And
mm,
as you give first, you can oftentimes get the things that you want, even though you may not have known that that's what you were actually looking for or desired at the time.
mhm.
And, over 19 years, I'm sure there's been some ups and downs, to say the least. And one of the things that we know is that these community leaders, people that lead brands, lead communities, they have this ability to be vulnerable and to be authentic and to really let their communities know, hey, y'all, this is what's going on here. And you kind of live with that no BS, take no hostages approach. If y'all follow Jay online, y'all have seen her dictionary. And I learn a few phrases every now and then. And I say I get to learn my Jay-isms there. So, what would you say has been kind of your biggest failure or your biggest learning experience? And what did you learn from it?
And so I probably would consider what appeared to be my greatest success was actually my greatest failure, right? And so I got really burned out in the branding industry after about 9 years of being in business. And then I took a hiatus for about 4 or 5 years. And I went into personal development. I wanted to help people just be more authentic. And the brand was called Emotional Nudity, right? It was all about just unpacking and being you. And if you unpack and if you're you, then people will accept you, but you've got to accept yourself first. And that was so great. And it was so wonderful. And it was a wonderful message. And the content that I created went viral multiple times. And so I ended up on with my own episode of TD Jakes Show on BET. I ended up with a column for Essence. I was featured in Essence Magazine, BET. So many brands, like major brands, came. The Oprah Winfrey Network. There were so many brands that came because they wanted that authenticity and the honesty and the story. But what nobody tells you is that being in the media doesn't pay. I mean, they'll fly you to wherever to be on whichever show, but they're not paying you to make an appearance. That you don't get paid to make an appearance. And all the clients that I thought I was going to get, I thought people were going to say, "Hey, I'll pay you to teach me to be authentic," right? While people liked it and the content went viral and they liked the idea and they liked the concept, no one was willing to pay for strategies around that. Okay. And so what they continued to ask me for years was, who did your logo? Who did your website? How'd you get on BET? How'd you get your brand photos? How did Essence find you? Blah, blah, blah. Everything that they asked. And I mean, 99% of the questions that I was asked were questions around building a brand. And of course, because branding was my career, I'm not one of those, a lot of the brand coaches out there right now, right, are people that have just been successful at building a brand and they can only tell you how they did it. Branding has been my career for nearly 20 years. So I've built several seven-figure brands personally, and I've had clients that I've helped to build those types of brands. Okay. And so building brands is what I knew. Come on. I worked at Coca-Cola and Delta, and I had clients like Turner Broadcasting and Home Depot. And so that's what I knew how to do well. I just did not want to teach other people how to do it. Okay. And for 4 years, nearly 5 years, I dug my heels in. So this is the failure, right? I dug my heels in and I wasn't making money, but I did not want to shift. All right. I did not want to shift. Even though people were coming to me and basically telling me what they were willing to pay for, I wasn't willing to shift. I was so married and so attached to what I wanted people to have that I wasn't listening to what they wanted. All right. And so I had all this visibility, but I was on BET broke. I was on Essence, struggling, right? Financially. And so I had all of this credibility and all of this visibility and nothing in the bank to match all of that. And I think that that's a big mistake that entrepreneurs make, is that they get very, very attached to their idea of what the business is, the business model is, what they want people to do, and they don't listen to what people are asking them for. That was my biggest mistake.
Mm. I wish that I could say that you were the only one that did that. And and that just from some of our own conversations. And I think that that's a good one to be able to share, because I think that sometimes people can get so stuck to, well, this is the one thing that I'm selling, or this is the way that it has to look. And I remember years ago you and I were chatting, and I was it was some graphic thing. And I was just like, yeah, I really don't like that. And you were like, are you paying yourself? And I was like, well, no. And it just reminded me of that. That's just like, sometimes I think that the community leaders or speakers and coaches, consultants get so caught up in, do I like what it looks like versus does my consumer like what it looks like? The person that's paying my bills, do they like what it looks like? Does it move them to actually hit the buy button, or to join that Facebook group, or to join that community? So I think that's awesome there. In terms of being able to, I guess, continue from there, community leaders, speakers, consultants, one of the things that they have to be able to do is effectively communicate.
Yep.
And, with our words, with our writing, but even with their visual brand, the visual brand is also something that communicates. And, earlier this year, something called Get Booked Basics, and training program that allowed community leaders and speakers to say, look, now that the whole world's in panic, now the whole world's here, some of y'all still trying to figure out, how do I get my message out? Would you, share a little bit about, some of the basics, some of the things that community leaders or people that want to be able to speak can do to be able to move forward in that direction?
Right. And I'm going to say that speaking is absolutely one of the most underrated marketing strategies out there. People spend a lot of time and energy on, networking and digital advertising and referrals and JVs and affiliates. And speaking is one of the most lucrative marketing strategies on the planet. However, the industry has shifted in the past 7 or 8 years. And it's been such a subtle shift that if you're not on the inside of the industry, you don't know what the shift has been, right? And so let me break down that shift. So if we look back in 2000, okay, the early 2000s, we had speakers like Tony Robbins and Lisa Nichols and Les Brown and all of those guys who were making millions speaking, right? They had like $50,000 fees and $25,000 fees to simply speak and motivate people. And then they would write a book, and then they would speak and go on the speaking circuit again. And they were making their money from selling books and speaking fees. Okay. So then 2008 happened. And then you had this whole economy situation, stock market crash, real estate crash, but it affected people, right? Because people are out of work, people are losing their homes. And so what that did was it traumatized the world economy. And what that means is that people are more prudent about where they spend their money. So there's some industries that really suffered. Initially, the real estate industry really suffered. It rebounded, but it still hasn't recovered to the early 2000s, right? Personal development struggled because it wasn't what we consider a survival, right, thing. So people only wanted to pay for things that was going to help them make more money or build more retirement. And so there were certain industries that really struggled. And so speaking as a service is technically personal development, right? And motivational speaking, that's technically personal development. So people weren't paying to just be inspired anymore. They needed more. They wanted more tangible, actionable things that they could do. And so what motivational speakers found themselves doing was creating events and programs, okay, to help sustain their ideas. So the shift is that they're not making the money anymore off of speaking, right? They're making money off of getting on the stage and selling that program. And so it's called the back of the room sales or behind the scenes sales. That's the new shift. And so what you're saying is if you are a industry, if you are in a service based industry and you want to sell more of any particular service or product, getting on stages is the best way to sell that, not necessarily through speaking fees. And so that's the shift. It's not the speaker fees, it's the money that you make from converting from the stage. That's the shift that a lot of people aren't aware of if they're not inside the industry. Does that make sense?
Makes absolute sense. I remember when I first started speaking now, I wasn't making Tony Robbins money, but, we would get a speaking fee. And then I remember the first time that I had the opportunity to, as you said, back of the room sales, to speak and then make an invitation from the stage. And at first I was terrified. And the reason that I was terrified is, I was just like, man, what if nobody buys? Like, I am up here in a room with 300 people and they done ran to the back of the room for every other speaker. What if they don't buy anything of mine? Then I'm going to be that speaker. And then the thing I told myself was, you've done webinars before. You have trained on a webinar. You have closed on a webinar. Pretend it's a webinar. And even that, I can tell you, selling on a webinar and selling from a stage are two completely different experiences. But I'm glad I'd done the webinar because it allowed me the opportunity to be able to at least have some perspective, because you're right, it was a big shift. And I think that, well, I know that, here in 2020 right now, people are also seeing this shift. When COVID happened, everybody that was selling from the live stage
Correct.
is now saying, how do I get booked virtually? How do I get meeting planners be able to book me online? How do I translate my message to something on Zoom and still be able to effectively communicate as a speaker when I am literally talking to a webcam and a microphone so that people can understand that I'm still present with them, right? And then, of course, be able to sell that way. Now, you did a training in May. Y'all, let me tell y'all, Jay did a training in May 2020, and I was on it. I was honored that Jay had me speak at her event. And it was just so funny because, man, Jay did exactly what she just talked about, made a quote unquote back of the room offer. I say the quote unquote, the air quotes here, because everybody was on home at Zoom. So it's not like nobody ran to the back of the room, but they were going to that sales page and they were just like in the chat thing, I bought. And because she's been able to clearly articulate what it is that she was offering and be able to communicate what it was and the value, that button was just like, man, I don't even know the percentage of the room that you closed that day, the virtual room that you closed that day, but it was just crazy how they were just like, I got it.
Yeah, it was like 80%. It was like 80%. It was pretty high.
Yeah, like 80%. And for those of you that are speakers, when was the last time you were in an in-person room and closed 80%? One of the stories I tell is early on in the webinar days, when I very first started, there was no mailing list. There was nothing. And I told people, I was just like, who wants to learn how to have a 66% close rate on a webinar? And everybody's always like, me. And I'm like, great, have 3 people show up and have 2 buy, because that was my first webinar.
Correct.
So, oh yeah, it's a thing. But what are some of the other things that speakers need to know when looking at getting booked right now?
So let's talk about getting booked. And this does apply to both virtual and live. All right. So there's just some certain things when you're selling. There's a lot of competition out there for speakers, and if you are a subject matter expert, you're probably on a list of many in your industry. And so let's talk about what makes you look more credible, okay, as a speaker. So there's a few components. So the first thing is you need a speaker's page on your website, okay? And if you don't have a good website or a fully functional website, then you can simply do a landing page, all right? You can go to do a landing page. I know or do something simple like Wix. Right? But you need to have a place where people can go online and consume everything. Okay. So that's the first component. You need a a speaker page on your website. All right. The second thing that you need is a speaker kit. Okay. Now, the speaker kit and the speaker page have pretty much the same information. It's just the speaker kit has the information in more detail. Why is this important? Because a lot of time event planners and event organizers are meeting with people. And so a lot of times they will download your speaker's kit and they will make copies of it to pass it around to other people or to email it around to other people. But it also gives you more space to actually brag a little bit about your credentials, right? So you can put your full bio, wherein on a speaker's page, you're going to be putting an abbreviated bio. In the speaker's kit, you can put your full bio. You can put more photographs that show your personality. You can put links to articles and things where you've been featured. So people want both, okay? Want both. Some people will just do the page. Some people want the kit, but the speaker's kits are still very, very necessary. So those are two things that you really need. The next thing that you really need is you need to have content, right? You've got to have video content of yourself floating around out there, okay? A lot of people, in the 2000s, we used to do something called a sizzle reel, where they would take all your little video clips from several of your different speaking engagements and put them together and put some fancy music to it and some swirling images, and people would just hire you based on just one clip where you said one joke and the whole audience laughed and they're like, oh, this person's going to be great, right? However, what they found out is that people are putting together these sizzle reels and they have those zingers, right? Those moments, but they can't carry an entire keynote. Okay. And so what they're looking for, what they start to do now with the rise of the live streams and the rise of YouTube, they'll actually ask you, do you have 5-minute or 10-minute clips of your speeches? Okay. And so if you are a new speaker and you don't have a lot of video of yourself speaking, one, set up some speaking engagements. I don't care if it's your church, it's a community center. I don't care if it's, an association. Set up a speaking engagement and get somebody to come and film you. So that's the first thing. But if you don't have that opportunity today, do YouTube videos or live stream. Okay. That's important, right? And teach something. Okay. You can do 3 minutes or 5 minutes where you teach 3 tips or 3 steps to do whatever. Okay. Do a series of those because it's going to give people an opportunity to show 2 things. One, your personality. All right. Your personality is a lot of what sells. Do not be boring. Nobody's going to pay you for a snorgasm. Okay. You got to be entertaining. So they want to see your personality. And number 2 is, believe it or not, is number 2 instead of number 1, is they want to see that you are a subject matter expert. Right? So you have to be a subject matter expert. And so if you put out content and it's not just 1 or 2 videos, if you've got a series of videos on a specific topic of your expertise, then that positions you a lot better than somebody who just submits a speaker's kit and say, hey, I speak on these topics. Okay. Now you've got the proof to back it up. And then if those videos can get a lot of views, that's even more social proof that it's what people want to hear. So let me just recap what I've told you. Okay. What I've said is you want to have a speaker page on your website, at the very least, a landing page. Number 2, you want to have a speaker kit. Okay. Number 3 is you want to have video content out there of you speaking, or at the very least, YouTube or live stream videos. Okay. And number 4, you need photos. Okay. We need photos. So we need photos like headshots, right? The professional photos. We need lifestyle shots of you just doing what you do in your everyday life and your everyday business. But we also need what we call action photos, which are just you on stage speaking, where people see you engaging and interacting with an audience. Now, all of this works for both virtual and live events. Okay, it works for both virtual and live events because even in virtual events, they want you to be exciting. Okay. The great thing about having these photos ready is when they hire you, they can grab your photos and they can go and promote right away and help get attendees, right? So you want to have headshots because you don't want to look bootleg when they're trying to promote you, but you also want to look credible. How about that?
Love it, y'all. And depending where you're at in your business and in your journey, when Jay even says a headshot, y'all, like these days, now at some point you should hire a professional photographer. But right now, I know people are at home, they're locked down, they're quarantined. You got your face mask on, you got your latex gloves on, everything else. Y'all, cell phones are so good these days, most of them, as long as you ain't got a flip phone. But you've got the opportunity to get a high quality photo. Use a plain background, like if you live in an apartment building, go to the lounge there to take some photos there. Use a blank wall within your space to be able to get those types of pictures. And that was some great information, Jay. And I think one of the ones I want to dive a little bit deeper into here is the importance of content, because anybody can be a one-trick pony, but people want to see that you can do more than the 30,000 foot view of something. Because over the past few years, there's been so many speakers, and I'll even hit branding here for a second, that have said, oh, I'm a brand strategist. And, they think that branding is about the logo, but they don't understand that branding is so much more than a logo. It's about your brand messaging. It's about your brand story. It's about your brand model. It's about your revenue model. And so many of the things that, when Jay works with her private clients to be able to help them build a bankable brand with her badass brand blueprint, she actually takes people through the clarity of all these things. And so all of these things happen in a full brand strategy before it's just like, what colors and what does the logo look like?
Right. And so let me give you the technical definition of branding, because people do think that they think visual when they think about it. And I tell people I'm a strategist. So it's not that much visual part going on in what I help my clients with. So here, write this down, guys. Grab a pen. 3, 2, 1. Branding is the visual and emotional expression of a promise, right? So visual is what you see. Emotional is what you experience, right? And your promise is what you deliver. Okay. So based on what people see, and based on what people see from you, and based on what people experience from you, what do they feel that you deliver well? That is your brand. And so for me, a lot of what people expect from me is the authenticity. But like Roberto said, it is the no fluff, no bull delivery. That's my promise. They know that whatever they pay for or sign up for, they're going to get that, and they're going to get it with no fluff and no bull. But they're going to be able to take my results to the bank. That's the brand. And then my colors speak to that, right? So my colors are bold and no nonsense. And like today, my hair is teal, so it's definitely that out of the box, no nonsense, no bull, bold, in your face. And so that's who I am. That's what the brand communicates and all of that. Now, can I just tell you a little caveat to that? Understand that the caveat to what my brand message and brand promise is a little bit different from who I am personally, right? So personally, I am a lot of fun, but people think that my favorite colors are my brand colors, which are, blue, teal, orange, green. Those are, very vibrant colors. But if you came to my house, you would see a lot of earth tones. You'd see a lot of grays. And my favorite color right now is rose gold, but in 3 years, it'll be different. So I don't have a favorite color that bounces around, but it's always something that's really simple, really neutral, really laid back in comparison to what people think my personality is. And so this is why I tell people you can't be so attached to what you like. It has to be about what the clients attract. So I can't really be a brand strategist and not have a vibrant, colorful brand. It doesn't sell, and it's not as believable. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. And speaking of, selling, being believable, and what you're known for, as a leader, I'm sure that some point in your career, you've either read a book or listened to a podcast or maybe even taken a course from someone. What are maybe one or two that you could share that have helped you in your journey that people might be able to look into at some point?
Yeah, so I love it. So first and foremost, one the first book that I probably read was when I took the leap into blogging, and then Facebook became a thing. And I ran across a book called Platform by Michael Hyatt. And at that time, there weren't that many people that were building what we call a platform, which is now we call it content. Okay. Back then it was called Platform. And so reading that book gave me permission because here he was, the former CEO of some multi-million dollar or bazillion dollar publishing company, right? And he was now writing blog content and speaking and making crazy money doing it. And when I read the book, there were just some things that he talked about, the content and saying what you know and how frequently you should post content. He was the first person that kind of had me posting content pretty much daily or every other day. And he put me on the path to really, really, really be a content creator and programming myself to carve out the time to create the content, right? Because the content creates the breadcrumbs back to your offer. And so you have to create content months in advance so that people are always finding the breadcrumbs. So if you're not creating content, then 3 months from now, you're not going to have clients. And then you're going to start trying to create content, but it takes them about 3 months to catch up with you. And that's at least the cycle of my content creation. So the sooner if I consistently create content, then I consistently have clients coming in. And so Michael Hyatt's book definitely taught me that platform, but I would say the one biggest takeaway from Platform was he gave me permission to have typos. Okay. So, we use WordPress, and I came from corporate America. I have, I, I don't have a degree, but my studies were broadcast journalism with a minor in English, right? And so working in marketing, the English has to be perfect. Going to school for English, it had to be perfect. And just coming from like my mom and them, right? They did not play about grammatical errors and speaking incorrect English. It was just not something that was tolerated in my household. So this is programming that was perpetuated through every level of my professional growth. Okay. And so I would just obsess over reading over it and rereading and rereading. And you can't catch your own typos because for whatever reason, when you write it, when you read it back, it says what you think it says, and you can't see your own typos.
No matter how many times you read it.
No matter how many times you read it, right? You can't see it. And so then it would slow me down because then I would have to get somebody to edit it and give it back to me. And a lot of times they would edit it and they would change the context. So it didn't quite say what I needed it to say initially because they think they're correcting it, but I'm actually meaning to say it like this. And so that took so much time. And he's like, listen, post your blogs with the typos. Post it with the imperfections. Post it with the typos. Your audience will proofread it for you. You've got free proofreaders. And guess what? Because of technology, it's not like it's in print and it's in a million places. So it's a simple go in, correct the typo, hit publish and refresh. And in 2 seconds, the typo's fixed. And so it was something that I had to teach a lot of people who came on board for me when there were typos. They were like, oh my God, there's a typo in that blog post. Take it down. No, I'm not taking it down. It's a simple fix. And people know what the fuck you meant. And they're going to read it and keep it moving. And if they don't, they're not the right people for you. And I would have to say, as a female, as a woman of color, right? I've been programmed to be 3 times as good to get half as much credit. And so it was not in my programming to allow my mistakes to be visible. And so I'm like, wait a minute, this rich white man got typos, then who the hell am I? Let me just go on and hit send, okay? Publish. And so that was the most freeing thing that I've ever like read or invested in. And that's really what put me on the road to just being a content creator, imperfect or no. And so that was probably the most career changing. And then lately, I love the podcast, Marketing Your Business Podcast from Stu McLaren or McLaren. I'm not sure how you say it, but it's STUMCLAREN. And he really talks a lot about building a tribe and how to service your community at a higher level. And so he specializes in memberships, but you learn from him just simply how to run an effective business in a way that services your clients at a higher level. And so I absolutely enjoy his content and his teaching style. So I would have to say, read Michael Hyatt Platform if you're struggling with content. And if you're looking to scale your business and you've got a staff or customers that you need to service at a higher level, then the Marketing Your Business podcast with Stu McLaren. Those are two of my faves. Two of my faves.
Awesome. I wrote them down here. And so it's actually, I saw when Michael Hyatt did like Platform University, all of that, and I never actually read the book. And so actually one of the fun parts for me of hosting a podcast is everybody tells all these great books and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to get that. And I'm addicted to books, especially Audible. So I would go download a book and just listen to it while I'm doing other things. So two last things here today, Jay. And number one, I know that this one's going to be extremely simple for you, is where do people find you online? How do they connect with you more?
All right, so you can find me at JAISTONE. It's pronounced J, but it's spelled JAISTONE. So jstone.com. I'm at jstone on social media. All my social media handles are jstone, except, I don't know, like TikTok or something. But if you still put it in the search, it'll pop right up. JAISTONE everywhere. That's how you can find me.
Awesome. And then parting words here today. What one piece of advice would you give business owners trying to build a bankable brand as they build their community?
So I would definitely say, one, listen to what your community has to say to you. Right? If they're saying to you, I like this, I need this, I want this, or you put something out and you got a big reaction for it, then do more of that. Whatever they like, do more of that. Whatever they're asking for, give them more of that. And don't be so, as subject matter experts, we're so self-righteous and indignant. They need this. They'll do better when they have this, right? And what we want for them and what they want for themselves is very different. And we have a responsibility to service them, not to service our own ego. Right. And so I think that that's really important. And number two, I would have to say, if you're not creating at least two forms of content on a weekly basis, and not two pieces, but two forms, meaning, Facebook post and YouTube, or Instagram and LinkedIn, you need a combination of reaching people at least two different places in two different formats. If you're not doing at least two different formats a week, you got to step your game up. You got to step your game up. It's how you're going to get found. It's how you're going to be positioned. It's how you're going to get booked. It's how you're going to get clients. So let's do it.
Y'all heard it from Jay, the brand mother and chief instigator herself. Just do it. So y'all, thanks so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share the podcast with any friends, and who knows, maybe an enemy or two along the way. This has been the Connected Community Leader Podcast, and we'll see y'all at the next episode. Bye-bye.